She captivated audiences as a possessed child. Behind her fame lurked demons of her own. A star pushed into darkness, fighting to reclaim her light. When Linda Blair's head spun in The Exorcist, the world was terrified, but few knew the real horror story was happening off-screen. A teenage girl thrust into unimaginable fame would soon face a battle more harrowing than any Hollywood script could devise. In 1973, The Exorcist transformed Linda Blair from an unknown child model into Hollywood's most controversial teenager. The role earned her a Golden Globe, an Oscar nomination, and unprecedented fame for a 14-year-old. Yet the same performance that catapulted her to stardom also triggered death threats from religious zealots, created a typecasting prison, and set the stage for a dramatic fall from grace. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, on January 22, 1959, Linda Denise Blair entered a world that would eventually both worship and persecute her. When she was just 2 years old, her father, a Navy test pilot turned executive recruiter, took a job in New York City, relocating the family to Westport, Connecticut. This move would unknowingly set young Linda on a path toward the entertainment industry, a world far removed from the Midwestern simplicity of her birthplace. By age 5, Linda's striking features and natural presence caught the attention of a modeling agency. Soon, the kindergartner was appearing in Sears, J.C. Penney, and Macy's catalogs. At 6, she secured a contract for print advertisements in the New York Times, an early sign of the camera's fascination with her. While other children were learning to read, Linda was learning to pose, to project, to perform on command. These early experiences formed the foundation of what would become both her greatest asset and her heaviest burden: her ability to transform for an audience. Between photo shoots, young Linda discovered her passion for horses. She became an accomplished equestrian, developing the discipline and focus that would later serve her in acting. This duality, the natural, free-spirited girl who loved animals alongside the polished professional already navigating the demands of the entertainment industry, would define the contradictions of her life. Her first acting role came on the short-lived soap opera Hidden Faces in the late 1960s. It was a modest beginning, unremarkable, except for the fact that it gave Linda her first taste of acting. No one watching the young girl in those episodes could have possibly predicted the cultural phenomenon she would soon become. The turning point arrived in 1971, when Warner Brothers began casting for their adaptation of William Peter Blatty's best-selling novel, The Exorcist. Director William Friedkin searched tirelessly, seeing over 500 girls for the pivotal role of Regan McNeil, the 12-year-old who becomes possessed by a demonic entity. The role demanded extraordinary emotional range, physical endurance, and a maturity beyond years, qualities Friedkin found in abundance when 13-year-old Linda auditioned. "I had a feeling about her as soon as I met her," Friedkin would later recall. "She was extremely bright. She was a straight-A student, and she was a champion horsewoman at the time. She was an extraordinarily gifted, natural actress." That instinct proved prescient. Blair's performance would not only anchor the film, but become one of the most iconic portrayals in horror cinema. What followed was a production that pushed Blair to physical and psychological extremes. Filmed over 9 months, The Exorcist required the teenager to endure hours of prosthetic makeup, perform in a refrigerated bedroom set that hovered around 30 degrees, and execute physically demanding scenes that would eventually lead to a spinal injury. In one particularly harrowing sequence involving a mechanically rigged bed, the harness malfunctioned, resulting in a fractured lower spine. an injury that would cause Blair pain for years to come. The film's December 1973 release unleashed a cultural earthquake. Audiences fainted in theaters. Some vomited. Others fled in terror. Journalists reported on the exorcist phenomenon as lines wrapped around blocks for weeks. The film grossed an astonishing $193 million worldwide, equivalent to over $1 billion in today's dollars. Critically acclaimed, it garnered 10 Academy Award nominations, including Best Supporting Actress for Linda Blair. At the 1974 Golden Globe ceremony, the 15-year-old accepted her award for Best Supporting Actress, with poise that belied her years. The Oscar nomination should have cemented her place as one of Hollywood's most promising talents. Instead, controversy erupted when it was revealed that some aspects of her performance, notably the demonic voice, were provided by veteran actress Mercedes McCambridge. Though this was standard practice in filmmaking, the revelation damaged Blair's Oscar prospects. She attended that year's ceremony, presenting an award alongside Billy D. Williams, where she joked about not having seen her own performance because she didn't like standing in lines. But the price of fame proved steep and immediate. Religious conservatives condemned the film as glorifying Satan, and Blair, as the film's most recognizable face, became the target of their outrage. Death threats poured in. Warner Brothers assigned bodyguards to protect the teenage star for 6 months, following the film's release. Strangers would recoil at the sight of her in public places, unable to separate the actress from her demonic character. "I scared thousands of people," Blair later revealed. "They would see me in a supermarket, in a clothing store, and their reaction was unbelievable." The psychological burden on a teenager, being simultaneously famous and feared, was immense. How does a 15-year-old process being treated as both a celebrity and a pariah? What does it do to a developing identity when strangers project their deepest fears onto you? Despite these challenges, Blair's career initially flourished. Between 1974 and 1977, she secured leading roles in several high-profile television films. In Born Innocent, 1974, she played a 14-year-old runaway who is sexually assaulted in a juvenile detention center. The controversial film became the highest-rated television movie of the year. In Sarah T., Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, 1975, she portrayed a teenage girl battling addiction. In Sweet Hostage, 1975, she starred opposite Martin Sheen as a kidnapping victim who develops a complex relationship with her captor. These roles established a disturbing pattern. While demonstrating Blair's considerable talent, they also reinforced her public image as a victim. Critics began to notice the troubling trajectory. How is it possible that a teenage actress can be making a busy career out of being violated, abused, and victimized, most often in kinky circumstances, wrote Jeff Simon of the Buffalo News. The Baltimore Sun declared that Linda Blair has become a professional victim. The typecasting wasn't lost on Blair herself. "I couldn't understand at the time why I kept being put into these taboo projects," she later reflected. But as a teenage actress in the 1970s, her agency was limited. The decisions about her career path were largely made by adults, agents, managers, parents, whose priorities may not have always aligned with her long-term well-being. By 1977, the pressures of early fame were taking their toll. Now 18, Blair was dealing with her parents' divorce, navigating romantic relationships in the public eye, including one with rock star Rick Springfield that began when she was just 15, and struggling with depression and alcohol dependency. The irony wasn't lost on observers. The girl who had portrayed a teenage alcoholic on screen was now battling similar demons in real life. That same year, she reprised her role as Regan in Exorcist II: The Heretic. The production was troubled from the start, with Blair's personal struggles mirroring the chaos on set. The sequel proved a critical and commercial disaster, with a 9% rating on Rotten Tomatoes that stands in stark contrast to the original's acclaim. For Blair, it represented another professional setback at a time when her personal life was already in turmoil. Then came the incident that would permanently alter her trajectory. On December 20th, 1977, Linda Blair made global headlines when she was arrested on drug charges and linked to a nationwide cocaine ring. DEA agents and local law enforcement descended on her Connecticut home to serve a fugitive warrant from Jacksonville, Florida. While there, officers discovered amphetamines on the premises, adding a possession charge to her growing legal troubles. The circumstances surrounding the arrest were complex. Blair had recently attended the funeral of Lynyrd Skynyrd band members who died in a plane crash. According to later accounts, she was allegedly pressured by an acquaintance to purchase cocaine while in Florida, partly because she was interested in buying a pedigree puppy the dealers were selling. The DEA had been monitoring the drug network and swept up Blair along with over 30 other suspects. The media coverage was merciless. The New York Daily News ran the headline, "Nab Linda Blair on Coke Rap," while television news anchor Walter Cronkite reported on the arrest during the CBS Evening News. For a young actress already struggling with the transition from child star to adult performer, the public humiliation was devastating. Eventually, the possession charge was dropped, and the conspiracy charge was reduced. Blair was sentenced to 3 years probation, a $5,000 fine, and required to make at least 12 public appearances warning young people about the dangers of drugs. While she avoided jail time, the damage to her reputation was irreparable. The promising career that had begun with an Academy Award nomination was now tainted by scandal. The fallout was swift and severe. Blair found herself effectively blacklisted in Hollywood. Major studios and prestigious productions closed their doors. The next phase of her career would be defined not by critical acclaim, but by a string of B-movies and exploitation films that capitalized on her notoriety, rather than her talent. Throughout the 1980s, Blair appeared in films like Hell Night, 1981, Chained Heat, 1983, and Savage Streets, 1984. Horror and exploitation movies that relied more on sensationalism than substance. Critics who had once praised her acting now mocked her with Razzie Award nominations for Worst Actress. Between 1980 and 1985, she would receive 5 such nominations, winning twice, a cruel inversion of the accolades that had once seemed her destiny. The era also brought another significant relationship to Blair's life, with funk musician Rick James. Their 2-year romance, beginning in 1982, became the inspiration for his hit song Cold-Blooded. In his autobiography, James described their relationship in vivid terms. Linda was incredible, a free spirit, a beautiful mind, a mind-blowing body. She liked getting high and getting down as much as I did. Their relationship took a dramatic turn when Blair reportedly had an abortion without informing James. She told me that it was our child, but gave me no voice in her decision. I call that cold-blooded, James claimed in his memoir. The relationship eventually ended due to James's escalating drug problems. Blair later made the difficult decision to walk away, saying, "I could not bear to be around that. It wasn't healthy for me, and it wasn't healthy for him." By the late 1980s, Blair's once promising career had been reduced to cameo appearances. This announcement suggests a woman who has made peace with her past and is ready to reclaim her narrative on her own terms. After decades of being defined by others, by filmmakers, critics, tabloids, and fans, Blair is finally positioned to tell her own story. Her journey from child star to cautionary tale to redemption through service illustrates the dark underbelly of early fame. The actress, who once embodied fictional terror, experienced real-life horrors of her own. The pressure of instant celebrity, the constraints of typecasting, the pain of public scandal, and the struggle to forge an identity beyond a single iconic role. The contrast between her early typecast roles as victims and her later life as a rescuer and advocate creates a compelling arc of transformation. The child who was manipulated by Hollywood's machinery grew into a woman who now protects the vulnerable. The teenager who once received death threats now preserves lives. The young actress who struggled with substance abuse now speaks about wellness and compassion. Linda Blair's legacy is ultimately a study in resilience. She endured the kind of early fame that has destroyed many child stars. She weathered public scandals that would have permanently derailed most careers. She suffered physical injuries, emotional traumas, and professional setbacks that would have broken lesser spirits. Yet through it all, she maintained a core of authenticity and eventually found her true purpose beyond the camera's gaze. Today, Blair stands as both a cinematic icon and a testament to the possibility of reinvention. To horror fans, she remains the unforgettable face of The Exorcist, a film that continues to terrify new generations. To animal rights advocates, she's a passionate activist whose foundation has saved thousands of abandoned animals from destruction. And to those who study the effects of early fame on child actors, she represents both a cautionary tale and an inspiration. Someone who survived the industry's darkest aspects and emerged with her humanity not only intact, but enlarged. The girl who terrified millions as Regan McNeil eventually found peace not in Hollywood's spotlight, but in the quiet company of rescued animals. Her story reminds us that our darkest chapters need not define us, that redemption is possible even after the most public falls from grace. What ultimately matters isn't the role that makes you famous, but the purpose you discover when the cameras stop rolling. If stories of resilience and reinvention speak to you, Linda Blair's journey from demon-possessed child to Hollywood outcast to animal welfare warrior demonstrates how a single role can both define and confine, but never determine one's ultimate legacy. In the final analysis, the most terrifying possession isn't by fictional demons, but by public expectations that threaten to consume one's authentic self. Linda Blair's greatest triumph may be that she finally exorcised those expectations and found her own path to meaning.